Hey guys, it's David Whitney. I wanted to make this Revelation video essay talking about four key topics. One is the Guardian of Peace statue that is outside of the United Nations, that is strikingly resemblance of the book of Revelation, Daniel, and all of the other beast prophecies for the book of Revelation, and how it is called the Guardian of Peace, and it was made by a Mexican artist, and it was set outside of the United Nations. And that if there is going to be a beast, a lot of people think that the 10-headed beast represents the 10 states that are the high states of the United Nations, and how one will lead them all. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is the great Euphrates River, how it has dried up. And because it has dried up, it has left a lot to wonder about the passage in Revelation about the four angels who were trapped at the bottom of the Euphrates River, who were released and brought 1/3 of all mankind to death. Also, the member states of the EU have decided to create a digital passport that would be inserted into your hand, which would be a digital representation of your identification. Also can house a cbdc that is issued by the government for digital transactions, which resembles a lot of the mark. But of course, use discernment when you listen to this. These are current updated events. I also want to talk about the Lucis Trust website talking about needing to basically get rid of 1/3 of the Earth's population, and the introduction to a modern-day guillotine that was predicted in the book of Revelation when he saw the souls of the beheaded for the testimony of Jesus Christ. And all of this is happening now. The Euphrates River, the digital ID, and possibly a mark that you cannot buy or sell without. Now, the European Union is smaller than the United Nations, but their power is more intense. So it is a broad part of the world, a broad part of the Western world that would be implementing this system. And yeah, I just want to know what you guys think. So this is the introduction. Be sure to watch and enjoy.
Stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power, and his seat and great authority. And I saw one of his heads, as it were, wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world wondered after the beast, and they worshipped the dragon which gave power unto the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 42 months. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints, and to overcome them. And power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and faith of the saints. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth.
This is the part of Revelation where I believe that the Antichrist in human form will be shot in the head, and he will miraculously be healed.
Earth in the sight of men, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand, or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666.
If you still think that this phrase, New World Order, is a conspiracy theory, you're suffering from a medical condition. On the Lucius Trust website, the consultants to the European Union, you find the statement that the New World Servers are occupied with the task of inaugurating the New World Order. In the same article, this shocking admission is made. 2/3 of humanity will stand upon the path at the close of this age, and with that, 1/3 will die, or to put it surreptitiously, will be held over for later unfoldment. That's the Lucius Trust. The word Lucius being the replacement for the word Lucifer, who works hand in hand with the EU, the European Union, stating that 2.5 billion human beings are planned to be killed off, all predicted by Jesus, and only Jesus.
And I heard a voice from the 4 horns of the golden altar which is before God, saying to the 6th angel which had the trumpet, Loose the 4 angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates.
The Euphrates has been the cradle of civilization in West Asia. The river has been the lifeline for millions in Iraq and Syria for thousands of years. But now it has sunk to a historic low, sparking the region's worst water crisis in years. Our next report tells you more.
The mighty Euphrates River used to near Khaled al-Hamis's farm. But now the river is only visible from a distance. The crops have been destroyed due to the lack of irrigation. Even worse, the farmer's family has been left without drinking water.
And the 4 angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year, for to slay the 3rd part of men. And the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000. And I heard the number of them. And thus I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat on them having breastplates of fire, and of jacinth and brimstone, and the heads of the horses were as the heads of lions, and out of their mouths issued fire, and smoke, and brimstone. By these 3 was the 3rd part of men killed, by the fire, and by the smoke, and by the brimstone which issued out of their mouths. For their power is in their mouth, and in their tails, for their tails were like unto serpents, and had heads, and with them they do hurt. And the rest of the men which were not killed by these plagues yet repented not of the works of their hands, that they should not worship devils, and idols of gold, and silver, and brass, and stone, and of wood, which neither can see, nor hear, nor walk. Neither repented they of their murders, nor of their sorceries, nor of their fornication, nor of their thefts.
The Euphrates has been the cradle of civilization in West Asia. The river has been the lifeline for millions in Iraq and Syria for thousands of years. But now it has sunk to a historic low, sparking the region's worst water crisis in years. Our next report tells you more.
The mighty Euphrates River used to near Khaled al-Hamis's farm. But now the river is only visible from a distance. The crops have been destroyed due to the lack of irrigation. Even worse, the farmer's family has been left without drinking water. The current drought is unprecedented.
And one more time, from the consultants to the European Union, from their website Lucius Trust, to prove to you that these people are all working toward and waiting for the world leader. The coming of the Avatar and the advent of the coming one are the keynotes of the prevalent expectancy. After everything I've shown you, are you going to ignore this? Or worse, are you going to trust these people, of whom were predicted to this very condemnation 2,000 years ago? Right down to a one-world system, depopulation, and to the man who will carry the number 666, and with it, implement a new system in which you won't be able to buy or sell unless you receive a mark in your hand or forehead.
The European Parliament have a provisional agreement to introduce a continent-wide digital ID, which will definitely invade your privacy and your cybersecurity, but at least there's no secret plan to insert microchips under our skin like conspiracy theorists warned years ago. Oh no! Hello there, you Awakening Wonders. Thanks for joining us on our voyage to truth and freedom. How important it is that we stay together at this time and look for ways to move beyond division and conflict, even though the invitation to fight seems permanent and prevalent. We talk a lot about advanced ideas that seem sometimes to be implausible and ridiculous, but after the pandemic period, many of us have become more open to the notion that there might be plans to introduce regulatory measures that seem like they're more from science fiction than political fact. But the European Parliament have just established in principle the introduction of a Europe-wide digital ID. This will be connected to cbdcs, that means digital currencies. Remember when digital currencies were bad, when they were Bitcoin, when they were offline and difficult to control and a bit off-grid? They're bad for the environment. Someone's going to hurt themselves. You could have someone's eye out with that digital currency. Well, now that they're organising it themselves from the United States to across Europe, suddenly they're okay. But more worrying than any of that is the introduction of measures to be able to observe us, control us, shut us down, and even something like universal credit, which I've heard people talk positively about, could be used as a measure to impose more control. But to get us into this subject, let's have a look at Dutch MEP Rob Roos, who you may remember from when he confronted a Pfizer employee about whether or not there'd been clinical trials around transmission, and the results were interesting, but on YouTube I'll have to hold back what I reveal. Here is Rob Roos. He's just come out of a meeting. He's all sort of like, "It's too late, guys. It's the end of the world now. It's the Matrix, man. I should have not left Morpheus in that chamber next to the lavatory. Ah!"
I just left the room where we had the negotiations about the digital identity, and I have bad news. The member states and the European Parliament came to an agreement. That means that probably not far from now, the digital identity will be a fact in the European Union. Right after this agreement, Commissioner Breton said, now we have the digital identity wallet, we have to put something in it. And what he meant was the digital euro, also known as the central bank digital currency. And this is a very bad development.
One of the defining myths of our culture is progressivism. Things are improving. We used to be cavemen, but look at us now. We've got all of these devices. Post-Enlightenment, things have been improving more broadly. Many of you might be thinking, sensing, feeling deep inside yourself that in conjunction with evident and obvious progress in technology and medicine, there's been a kind of a decline, a deterioration, something that's difficult to define and perhaps exists in the realm of the spirit. Notice how these ideas were first of all spoken of as, as with any potential scientific or technological project, I suppose, as pie-in-the-sky potentialities, and now they're being introduced in quite a gentle way. And in the pandemic we discussed, didn't we, the possibility of vaccine passports. That was discussed, and I think because of independent media, many of these ideas received a lot of pushback and resistance. What I would ask you to be observant of is the possibility that once these ideas are discussed, presented to you, and somewhat normalised by the media, you'll see a bunch of stuff normalising it in the coming weeks and months, I imagine. I can predict this now. Let me know in the chat. that when you see it. What will happen is a situation will occur, and this is not a conspiracy theory. I'm not saying that it'll be a false flag event, or whatever. I'm just saying because of the way things are, there will be a war, there will be a pandemic, there will be an event, and during that event, they're going to say, obviously now we're going to have to use that digital ID thing we've been discussing, and we're going to have to advance that because it's not safe now. Remember how close we came in the pandemic to, in order to go to concerts, you're going to have had this medication. Now you know that it didn't prevent transmission. Now there's so many things. I'm not going to rehash all of that stuff now. What I'm saying is that any measure that ultimately affords centralized authority a greater ability to control you, to control your movements, to control your transactions, to control your finances, is ultimately not going to be in your service. That's why I think we live in such a polemicized and conflagratory time, a time of conflict, because most people in the back of their minds think, well, as long as these measures are only applied to the people I don't like, I'm kind of glad. Yeah, I don't mind if you cancel or silence those. I've never liked those people anyway. But once the principle is established, it's difficult to predict how it might. Well, it's not difficult to predict. I'm going to predict it will be deployed in order to centralise authority and shut down any dissent towards the establishment.
They always promise us not to make this connection. And even a lot of experts, privacy experts and security experts, warned also last week this is a very bad idea for our privacy and our freedom.
The warnings of privacy and cybersecurity experts is something we'll cover in more detail in a minute, but you might notice that yourself, you have a kind of lethargy, kind of an inability to confront it. You feel a bit worn out with all of the wars and diseases and this kind of atmosphere of our culture. You might be like, oh God, just do it. What can I do anyway? You'll happily just accept that your role in a democracy is to choose one of these two basically the same political parties that are funded in the same way. I suppose what I'm inviting you to look at is the possibility of confronting and resisting what seems inevitable but is plainly being pointed out as undesirable.
And still, this digital identity is pushed through. But it's not too late, because we still have to vote on this in the plenary. So what you can do, send your MEP from your member state an email and tell him or tell her that you are against this tool.
Some detail. The European Parliament and the majority of the member states reached a provisional agreement on the establishment of the European Digital ID, or EID, the first central and fully digital identification system for all Europeans, on Thursday. Conservative lawmakers and cybersecurity experts are sounding the alarms, citing concerns for potential large-scale abuse. We are taking a fundamental step so that citizens can have a unique and secure European digital identity, Nadia Calvino, the Spanish Minister for Economy and Digitalization, representing the European Council Spanish presidency, said. When there are ongoing migrant crises, when there are feelings of broad antipathy towards migrants, a digital ID becomes appealing. It will be one of the ways that a variety of people will be induced into accepting a continent-wide digital ID.
When I was in high school, coming from a completely non-Christian and non-religious family or background, I distinctly remember the first time that I decided that the Bible, or the New Testament, to be more precise, was definitely not true. Made up, fairy tale, whatever. It was one verse, one scripture that to me at the time proved unequivocally that it wasn't written for our time. A prophecy that was impossible to be fulfilled. Here's the verse. And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and authority to administer justice was given them. And I saw the souls of those who had been beheaded, because of the testimony they bore of Jesus, and because of the word of God. No way could guillotines be introduced as a form of execution in the 21st century, right? No way. Proof that the Bible was a prehistoric book written for prehistoric people. And this is long before he woke me up on a midnight highway to spare my life from a high-speed collision into a concrete wall. Ladies and gentlemen, in 2021, like the smartphone or the smartwatch, this is called the smart guillotine. Built by Chanel. You know, the perfume and clothing and accessories brand for the rich. What on earth does a perfume company have to do with chopping people's heads off? Well, I thought I told you that All of this is just the tip of the iceberg. I wonder who really owns Chanel. Well, here's their logo, and there is an eye in the design. And have you seen their drip design? How odd. Welcome to the real world. Georgia House of Representatives in the 1995-96 sessions. This is Bill HB 1274 on the death penalty, guillotine provisions. How far along are we into enacting these bills worldwide? I don't know. Maybe they've been enacted already. But I just wanted to show you that in 1995 the ball was already rolling.